What happens when a prince who gave up his crown for Hollywood fame sits across from America's sharpest satirical mind and the conversation spirals out of control? Tonight, we're unpacking one of the most explosive moments in television history where security scrambled, producers panicked, and Jon Stewart did something he'd never done in decades of hosting: physically remove a guest from his own show. Be sure to subscribe and drop a comment, because this story gets crazier by the minute and you won't believe how a royal interview became a total disaster. The tension was thick from the moment Prince Harry stepped onto the Daily Show set. Jon Stewart, known for his quick wit and fearless questions, had that familiar glint in his eye, the one that told regular viewers he was ready to dig deep. Harry, dressed casually in jeans and a button-down shirt, looked relaxed as he settled into the chair, but something about his demeanor was off. He didn't seem up for Stewart's usual pointed humor. "So, Prince Harry," Stewart began, leaning in with his signature posture, "you've been busy lately. How does it feel to go from cutting ribbons to cutting Netflix deals?" Harry gave a tight smile. "Well, Jon, I think that's a rather simplistic take on what my wife and I are doing. We're focused on meaningful content that actually makes a difference." "Meaningful content," Stewart echoed, raising an eyebrow. "Right, like the documentary about your struggles with royal life. I watched it, and honestly, sitting in a multi-million-dollar Montecito mansion while criticizing your family felt a little ... I don't know, tone deaf." The audience chuckled nervously. Harry's posture shifted. He straightened, his jaw tightening. "You're missing the point, Jon. We were sharing our truth about the institution and the damage it can..." "Dude, your truth," Stewart repeated slowly. "Interesting phrase, because last I checked, there's just truth. Not mine, not yours, just facts. And the facts are you've built quite the career, airing your family's dirty laundry on every platform willing to pay." Harry's face reddened. "That's completely unfair. You clearly haven't watched our content. If you had, you'd know we're shining a light on real issues: mental health, racial injustice, institutional corruption." "Oh, I watched," Stewart shot back. "I saw you and Meghan with Oprah making serious accusations. Then I watched those same claims get walked back, clarified, reinterpreted like a politician trying to explain away campaign promises. So tell me, which version was your truth?" The studio was dead silent. Harry leaned forward, voice low and serious. "With all due respect, Jon, you're speaking on things you don't understand. You've never lived inside a system like that, never had every move scrutinized. Your wife dragged by the press, your own family turned their backs when you needed them most." Stewart's expression softened briefly, then hardened again. "You're right, I haven't lived that life. But I have lived a life where everything I worked for. I couldn't just call my dad when things got rough. I didn't get meetings with streaming execs because of my Are you saying I haven't worked hard?" Harry's voice rose. "Do you have any idea what I went through in Afghanistan? What I've done for veterans? The charities I've backed?" "I'm not minimizing your military service," Stewart replied, voice calm but firm. "That was real. That mattered. But let's be honest, when things got messy with the royals, you didn't deal with it privately. You went public. You turned it into a PR campaign. You've done more talk shows trashing your family than some stars do promoting blockbusters." Harry stood abruptly, face flushed. "This is exactly the toxic journalism that drove us out of the UK. You're not interested in real dialogue. You just want to mock people for ratings." Stewart stayed seated, but his voice sharpened. "Sit down, Harry. You came to my show, remember? You're here to promote your latest projects, so let's talk about it. Let's talk about how you and Meghan signed deals worth hundreds of millions while claiming your lives were so hard. Let's talk about how you monetized your family drama better than the Kardashians ever did. Don't you dare compare us to them," Harry snapped. "Still standing," Harry said. "We're trying to make a positive impact on the world." "By doing what, exactly?" Stewart shot back. "By making documentaries about yourselves. By giving interviews about how misunderstood you are. By writing tell-all books about private conversations with your father and brother. That's your idea of a positive impact." The audience shifted uncomfortably in their seats. This wasn't the usual Daily Show banter. It had gotten personal, and everyone could feel it. Harry pointed at Stewart. "You know what, Jon? This is exactly why traditional media is dying. You're more interested in gotcha moments than in actually understanding the issues we're trying to highlight: climate change, mental health, social justice. These aren't just talking points to us. They're causes we genuinely care about." Stewart leaned back in his chair, a sardonic smile forming. "Oh, you care about them. Is that why you take private jets to climate conferences? Is that why you live in a home that uses more electricity in a month than most families use in a year? Is that why your idea of social justice is complaining about not getting enough money from the royal family while people are struggling to pay rent?" "That's enough," Harry said, his voice shaking with anger. "You're twisting everything I've said." "I'm not twisting anything," Stewart replied calmly. "I'm asking you to explain the contradictions. You want to be seen as champions of the oppressed while living like the elite you claim to oppose. You want sympathy for your struggles while earning money that most people couldn't dream of. In 10 lifetimes, you want to be taken seriously as activists when your biggest accomplishment seems to be turning family drama into Netflix content. Harry stepped toward Stewart's desk, his fists clenched. You have no idea what you're talking about. No idea what we've sacrificed or what we've been through. Stewart finally stood, meeting Harry's glare. Hedden, what you've been through, your parents divorced. That happens to millions of kids every year, and they don't get to cry about it on international TV while getting paid millions for the privilege. The words landed like a slap. Harry's face turned white, then flushed red, his whole body trembling with rage. The studio audience gasped, some even covered their mouths. This had crossed every line of on-air decorum, and everyone knew it. Dare you, Harry whispered, voice barely audible, but laced with venom. How dare you trivialize what happened to my mother? She didn't just die in a divorce, Jon. She was killed by the same toxic media culture you're fueling right now. Stewart's expression stayed still, but his voice carried a new edge. Your mother was a remarkable woman. She did incredible work in charity and humanitarian causes. But Harry, she's been gone for over 25 years. At some point, you have to stop using her memory as a shield every time someone questions your choices. A shield. Harry's voice cracked. You think I'm using my mother's death as a shield? She was murdered, chased into a tunnel by photographers because people like you convinced the public they had a right to every detail of her life. People like me. Stewart shot back. Harry, I'm a comedian. I make jokes about politicians. I'm not a paparazzi. I'm not a tabloid editor. And I'm certainly not responsible for what happened to your mother. But you know who else isn't? Your father, your brother. The rest of your family who you've spent the last few years publicly blaming for every issue in your life. The audience was silent now, barely breathing. Security moved closer to the set. Sensing the situation was teetering on the edge, Harry stepped closer to Stewart's desk, his voice now a shout. You want to know what my family did? They threw us to the wolves. When Meghan was being attacked by the press, when she was having suicidal thoughts, when she needed support, they cared more about protecting the institution than protecting us. And your solution was to go on TV and tell the world about it. Stewart snapped. Instead of getting her help privately, instead of working through family channels, you turned your wife's mental health crisis into a primetime special. We tried to handle it privately, Harry yelled, slamming his hand on Stewart's desk. We asked for help. We followed the protocols. We did everything they told us to, and nothing changed. The attacks got worse. The racism got more obvious, and my family just stood by. Stewart stepped around his desk, standing face to face with Harry now. So you decided to burn it all down. If you couldn't get what you wanted, you'd make sure everyone suffered. We tried to find middle ground, Harry said, voice hoarse from shouting. We wanted to serve the crown part-time, Harry said, to have some financial independence while continuing our royal duties. They said no, so we left. You left, Stewart repeated mockingly. You didn't just leave, Harry, you signed deals worth hundreds of millions of dollars, then spent the next 3 years dragging your family through the mud in public. You wrote Sparrow Book where you exposed private conversations with your dying grandmother, talked about physical fights with your brother, and revealed details about your father's coronation prep. That's not leaving, that's revenge. Harry was breathing hard now, fists clenched at his sides. Those stories needed to be told, he said. People needed to understand what that institution really is, how it treats people, how it protects itself at the cost of everyone else. Told by who? Stewart demanded. By you. The guy who's lived in luxury his entire life, who's never had to worry about money, housing, healthcare, or education. You think you're a whistleblower exposing corruption. You're just a privileged man throwing a very public tantrum because your family wouldn't bend the rules for you. You're completely missing the point, Harry shouted, spit flying from his mouth. This isn't about money or privilege, it's about survival. It's about protecting my wife and children from the same system that killed my mother. Stewart's voice dropped to an icy calm. Your mother got into a car with a drunk driver, Harry. That's what killed her, not the royal family, not the media, not some grand conspiracy. A tragic accident caused by poor decisions in a moment of panic. The studio fell dead silent. Even the cameras seemed to pause. Harry stood frozen, mouth slightly open in shock, until his face twisted with fury. Get out, he said quietly. Excuse me, Stewart replied. I said, get out, Harry repeated, louder now. This is over. Turn off the cameras. I'm done with this interview. Stewart laughed sharply, the sound echoing across the stunned studio. Harry, this is my show. You don't get to tell me to get out. You're the guest, remember. Harry glanced around the studio, disoriented, his breathing ragged and face still flushed with anger. Then I'm leaving. This interview is over. No, it's not, Stewart said firmly, stepping into Harry's path. You came here to promote your latest projects, so let's talk about it. Let's talk about your new documentary series on mental health awareness. He stepped closer, Tell me, does it feature you and Meghan in another beautiful setting, talking about how hard your lives are? Move, Harry growled through clenched teeth. Answer the question, Stewart pressed. Is it actually going to help people with mental health struggles, or is it just another chance to play the victim while cashing another check? Harry shoved Stewart aside, not enough to injure him, but forceful enough to send a message. I said, move. Stewart stumbled back a step, eyes wide. Security guards immediately stepped forward, but he raised a hand to stop them. Did you just put your hands on me? He asked, voice dangerously quiet. Realizing what he'd done, Harry's rage faded into panic. Jon, I didn't mean to. I just wanted to leave. You assaulted me on my own show, Stewart said, his voice rising. In front of my audience, my crew, my cameras. You put your hands on me because you didn't like what I said about your little media empire. That wasn't assault, Harry protested. I barely touched you. You put your hands on me without permission, Stewart said sharply. After I asked you fair questions about your public statements, your business deals. This is exactly the entitled behavior that proves everything I've been saying about you. The audience was murmuring now. Some stood to get a better look. Producers were speaking rapidly into their headsets, unsure how to handle the unfolding chaos. Harry looked around, desperately, the cameras still rolling, the crowd watching, and Stewart glaring at him with contempt. This whole thing was a setup, he said suddenly. You never intended to have a fair interview. We wanted to serve the crown part-time, Harry said, to have some financial independence while continuing our royal duties. They said no, so we left. You left, Stewart repeated, his tone mocking. You didn't just leave, Harry. You signed deals worth hundreds of millions, then spent the next 3 years publicly tearing into your family. You wrote a book, Spareware. You shared private conversations with your dying grandmother. You told the world about fights with your brother. You leaked details about your father's coronation plans. That's not leaving, that's revenge. Harry's chest was heaving, fists tight at his sides. Those stories had to be told, he said. People deserve to know what that institution really is, how it treats people, how it protects itself at everyone else's expense. Told by who? Stewart snapped. You, the guy who's lived in luxury his entire life, who's never worried about money, housing, healthcare, or education. You think you're some whistleblower. You're a privileged man throwing a very public tantrum because your family wouldn't bend the rules for you. You're missing the point completely, Harry yelled, spit flying from his lips. This isn't about money or privilege, it's about survival. It's about protecting my wife and children from the same system that killed my mother. Stewart's voice dropped to a deadly calm. Your mother chose to get in a car with a drunk driver, Harry. That's what killed her, not the royal family, not the media, not some grand conspiracy. A tragic accident caused by poor decisions in a moment of panic. The studio fell silent. Even the cameras seemed frozen. Harry stood still, stunned, his mouth slightly open. Then his face twisted with rage. Get out, he said quietly. Excuse me, Stewart replied. I said get out, Harry repeated. Louder now, this is over. Turn off the cameras. I'm done with this interview. Stewart let out a harsh laugh that echoed through the silent studio. Harry, this is my show. You don't get to tell me to get out. You're the guest, remember? Harry looked round wildly, suddenly aware of where he was. His breathing was ragged, his face still flushed. Then I'm leaving. This interview is over. No, it's not, Stewart said firmly, stepping in front of him. You came here to promote your latest project, so let's talk about it. Let's talk about your new mental health documentary series. He didn't flinch. Tell me, does it show you and Meghan sitting in another luxurious location, complaining about how hard your lives have been? Move, Harry said through gritted teeth. Answer the question, Stewart pressed. Is this documentary actually going to help people, or is it just another excuse to play the victim while cashing another check? Harry shoved him hard enough to injure, but enough to make his point. I said move. Stewart staggered back a step, eyes widening. Security guards stepped forward, but he raised a hand to stop them. Did you just put your hands on me? He asked, voice low and dangerously quiet. Realization hit Harry. The rage gave way to panic. Jon, I didn't mean to. I just wanted to leave. You assaulted me, Stewart said, voice rising. On my own show, in front of my crew, my audience, my cameras. You pushed me because you didn't like what I said about your little media empire. That wasn't assault, Harry insisted. I barely touched you. You put your hands on me without permission, Stewart snapped. After I asked you legitimate questions about your public statements and your business deals. His voice grew louder, sharper with every word. This is exactly the kind of entitled behavior that proves every single point I've made about you. The audience was murmuring now. Some had stood up for a better view. Producers were speaking rapidly into their headsets, trying to manage the chaos. Harry scanned the room in desperation, the rolling cameras, the stunned crowd, Stewart's unflinching glare. This was a setup, he said suddenly. You never intended this to be a fair interview. You brought me here to ambush me, Harry snapped. I brought you here to ask questions, Stewart said coolly. Questions any journalist with integrity should ask. The fact that you can't handle basic scrutiny of your public statements and business ventures says everything anyone needs to know about you and your wife. Don't bring Meghan into this, Harry warned, his temper flaring again. Why not? Stewart fired back. She's half of your brand, the co-star of your victim narrative. She sat with Oprah and leveled accusations against your family that you both have had to walk back or clarify multiple times. That's it, Harry roared, lunging toward Stewart. This time, security didn't hesitate. Two large guards in black suits stepped in, grabbing Harry by the arms as he struggled against them. Let go of me, Harry shouted, thrashing against their hold. Do you know who I am? You can't touch me like this. Stewart watched with a mixture of disgust and satisfaction. There it is, he said, turning to the cameras. Ladies and gentlemen, the real Prince Harry. The moment someone questions him, asks him to take responsibility, he lashes out physically and hides behind his title. I am a prince of the United Kingdom, Harry yelled, still fighting. The guards, you can't treat me like this. This is assault. You assaulted me first, Your Highness, Stewart replied mockingly, and last I checked, you stepped away from royal duties. You don't get to quit the institution and still use the title when it suits you. You can't have it both ways, Harry. The audience was in chaos. I'm filming, others shouting, many trying to leave. The producers had given up on control, letting the cameras roll, knowing this was now television history. Harry stopped struggling, catching his breath, glaring at Stewart. You planned this, didn't you? He said. You never wanted a real conversation about the work we're doing. You just wanted to humiliate me on live television. I wanted to ask you questions, Stewart replied, straightening his tie. Real questions about your public statements, your business deals, your accusations against your family. And if you consider journalism to be humiliation, that tells us everything we need to know about how you've been living these past few years. Journalism. Harry scoffed bitterly. Is that what you call attacking someone's dead mother? Is that what you call victim blaming and character assassination? Stewart stepped closer, meeting his eyes. Your mother was a remarkable woman. She used her platform to help people. She worked with AIDS patients when it was taboo. She campaigned against landmines when it was dangerous. She used her celebrity for real good. What have you done besides complain about your family and cash streaming deals? Harry's face turned pale, then flushed red again. How dare you compare me to my mother? He growled. You have no right to even speak her name. I have every right, Stewart shot back. She was a public figure who did real good. You're a public figure who's done nothing but PR for yourself. If you don't want the comparison, maybe try living up to her example instead of hiding behind her memory. The guards were still holding Harry, but with a looser grip now. As they watched the confrontation unfold, Harry noticed Dan broke free, not to attack but to rip the microphone from his lapel. You want to know the truth? He shouted into it. Harry's voice echoed through the studio. You want the truth? The truth is that Jon Stewart is a washed-up comedian, jealous of anyone who's actually relevant today. He's using me to revive his fading career by stirring up controversy. Stewart laughed a genuine, full laugh for the first time that night. A fading career, he said, shaking his head. Harry, I've been doing this for 30 years. I've won Emmys. Peabodys have helped shift political conversations.
What?
Have you changed? Netflix stock prices, tabloid traffic. We've started real conversations. Harry fired back, gripping the mic, about mental health, racism, institutional abuse, the importance of speaking your truth even when it's hard. You've sparked conversations, Stewart said, flatly, about yourselves. Every interview, every docuseries, every press appearance, it's all been about Harry and Meghan. When was the last time you made anything that wasn't just a platform for your own narrative? Harry paused. His chest rose and fell rapidly. Everything we do is about creating positive change. Making money is an impact, Stewart said sharply. Whining isn't activism. Turning your family drama into binge content. That's not public service. Security inched forward, but Harry raised a hand. I'm not finished, he said into the microphone. This is exactly the kind of institutional protection we've been calling out. Jon Stewart represents the old guard, legacy media that protects the powerful and tears down anyone who challenges them. Stewart tilted his head. Harry, I'm just one guy with a show, asking you questions about your public statements. If that feels like persecution, then you're even more insulated than I thought. You're part of the system that tries to silence truth-tellers. Harry continued, his voice rising. You protect the same institutions we've been fighting to reform. What institutions am I supposedly protecting? Stewart shot back. I've spent my career skewering politicians, corporations, even the monarchy. I'm not protecting anyone. I'm asking you to explain why your actions don't line up with your words. Harry looked around the studio in desperation, searching for support that wasn't there. The audience stared back, somewhere between fascinated and horrified, watching a man come undone. This is character assassination, Harry said finally. This is what they did to my mother, and now you're doing it to me. Stewart's composure cracked. Your mother never cashed in on her family, he said, voice tight. She didn't write tell-all books or sell documentaries about private trauma. She didn't make her grief a commodity. Stop comparing yourself to her. You are not her. The words hit Harry like a slap. He staggered back, still clutching the mic, his face crumbling. For a brief second, he didn't look like a prince, he looked like a lost man unraveling. Security, Stewart said, his tone final. Please escort Prince Harry off the set. This interview is over. You can't do this, Harry protested. As the guards stepped in, I'm a guest. You invited me. I invited you to talk about your work, Stewart said coldly. Instead, you threw a tantrum, put your hands on me, and turned this show into a circus. You're no longer welcome here. The guards took Harry's arms firmly, but without force. As they began leading him away, Harry broke free one last time. This isn't over, he shouted, pointing at Stewart. The world will see who you really are. Stewart looked straight into the camera, calm, unshaken. I think they already did. Harry, I think they just did. As security lead Prince Harry off the Daily Show stage, Stewart returned to his desk, calmly straightened his notes, and looked into the lens with the professionalism that made him a household name. Well, he said with a dry smile, that was ... something. We'll be right back after this break. The cameras stopped, but the damage was done in under 30 minutes. Prince Harry had gone from global sympathy to public spectacle, and Jon Stewart had just delivered one of the most brutal takedowns in late-night television history.